So I want to talk about uh, toxic family members and how if you're not careful to set boundaries and know that you need to set these boundaries with certain family members, they will do everything in their power to take advantage of your power. Um, they will be deeply threatened by your position, by your ability to be able to walk into something that they have not been able to walk into, right? And so you come to this realization that at some point something broke for them in their psyche and they have never been able to recover. And so these kids now have become adults and those adults had kids and so on and so forth. And so this is how these family dynamics are formed, where the unhealed have created a safe haven for themselves to continue to operate in toxic ways, as opposed to taking the strength and the effort that it takes to rise above that and to heal from that. So it's almost it's odd in a way because they say forgiveness is for you, not the other person. But pride and ego will tell you that forgiveness is a weak reaction. That's you being weak. That's you losing, right? And we live in a world where pride and ego would more readily take precedence over kindness. And so you these families are incentivized to stay unhealed because it would potentially yield the results that they're looking for by hook or by crook. And I can speak from personal experience because I come from a very toxic family dynamic, particularly my mother's side, although outwardly my father's side might seem much more toxic. And I feel like there's only two ways where sadness can manifest itself. If you're someone who's insecure, someone who's been beat up, sort of put down, sort of negated and dismissed as a child, you either internalize it or you externalize it, and neither of them lead you to a place of healing. My father's side has visible addictions and like have uncles that are not doing well, like they're just not doing well. Mental health, schizophrenia, alcoholism, um, depression, deep depression, probably suicidal ideation, although there's never really been a conversation about that part. And just substance abuse, drug abuse, and perpetual, like decades of it. Like these people are stuck in these cycles where they can't get themselves out of this loop. Um, I read somewhere, and forgive me because I don't have the citations for a lot of the things that I read. I just know that at some point it clicked for me when I read it. This is why I remember. But somewhere I I read or I heard that all addictions are a chase for spiritual food. It's like you're looking for a state of homeostasis, of equilibrium, of balance from within. Your soul is searching for that. And so if it doesn't have the tools to find it spiritually, it will find it in the 3D world, in the external world, in the world where you see, hear, smell, taste, touch, in the tangible world. And I mean, when you see people that drink, they're happier, they're more themselves, they're looser, there's just less inhibitions, and they're able to sort of express themselves a little bit more and sort of let their guard down in a sense. And the second they're not drinking, they're faced with the reality of their world, and it could potentially be years of things that they haven't faced. And so you'd much rather stay in that drunken state or high, or however you you self-medicate, to achieve a space where you could just be and live. And even if you're fully aware of the cycle that you're on and you want to get off the cycle, it's your body has been conditioned to needing this external thing just to operate. And this is why i have I didn't before. I used to think that drug addicts and alcoholism and all of that was like you're just too weak, and you couldn't make it work, and you suck, and this is how your life has turned out. And as I've grown up and gotten to know my parents as people, you have to know your parents as human beings. They're human beings first, before they had you, before you were ever in the picture. And I've been able to gain a level of compassion for them that I didn't have before. It's almost a level of understanding that I didn't have before. And so, even growing up, I've always had a lot of compassion for the asshole like that. Like, if you have this secretary that's just a mean sack of poop, that's like the front desk person. That's the first person you walk into in the building. It's the first interaction. It's the first impression. And she's just not a nice person. It's just not a nice energy to be around. You don't want to be next to her. You won't take her dirty cookies, and you just genuinely don't enjoy this person. More often than not, she grew up like that, and she grew up being shunned and ridiculed, and people didn't want to be around her. And so you sort of become the thing that you've been conditioned to be. So, going back to family ties, I'm sure she's probably, let's say, going back to the secretary, I guess, you can see how this person is not a good mom, maybe, or a good aunt, or maybe doesn't have any kids, and it's just nasty to everybody. But make no mistake, 9 times out of 10, something broke for that person up here and here simultaneously. This, we are mind, body, soul, but we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And so, if you've been ill equipped to handle the human experience, you get rocked once or twice. I mean, once can keep a lot of people down. But if it's something that's happening to you repeatedly, like, let's say you've been trespassed against as a child, um, sexually, right? If that happens repeatedly, you sort of resign to the fact that this is how life is. This is how life is for me. And unfortunately, this is the card that I was dealt, and that's it. And so you sign up for it after a while. And so I have been able to move through these emotions of I I hated my dad for a long time. I had a lot of hatred, a lot of like just anger towards my dad. I was very upset with him for a very, very long time. I blamed him for a lot of the things that happened. I guess, broken home, my mom having to struggle, all of that. Like, I just hated my dad. And I learned to forgive him the more I got to know my mother, and realized that she had a lot to do with the brokenness that I had experienced as a child. And I kind of always hated my mom in a way because there were times where I grew up in a home with domestic violence, and it wasn't like, a slap or here and there, like an argument or something like that. And slaps are not okay. It's never okay. So the second you're putting your hands on someone is because you, one, have an inability to communicate, and two, have a necessity to control, coupled with anger and an inability to control your emotions. So if you throw all those things together, it's the equivalent of a third grader having a tantrum, except now that third grader is your supervisor. And when they have a tantrum, your paycheck shows up funny, and now they're messing with the food that you put on your table, right? So it's an entirely different dynamic when you get older, because if you have deep set insecurities, they tend to manifest themselves in different ways as you get older. And you tend to continuously find other ways to mask that, as opposed to actually entertaining the fact that I should look at this and heal. So, going back to my parents, I realized that both of my parents came from broken homes. They were very open about trying to not replicate that home for their kids. And in fact, that's exactly what happened. So, the thing that happened was the one thing they didn't want to happen. And to this day, I can tell you that they both don't really know how it got so bad, but it was bad from the jump. My father was on track to be a Major League Baseball player, and then he had kids. My mother was on track to be a backup dancer for Michael Jackson, and then she had kids. So it's like you have two kids. My parents were also teen parents. You had two kids that had kids, two kids that come from two different broken homes, right? And zero equipment to move forward, ill equipped in terms of any sort of emotional conversation, even though they did have conversations. This had a very like Jekyll and Hyde home. When my parents were great, they were excellent. Like when my parents were great, they would my parents were friends. My parents were besties. They were friends. And I would see these dynamics with them where I'm like, man, like I wish, I can't wait to have that with my significant other. Like my parents would joke about things, maybe making fun of somebody on TV, and they would just like dapping each
It's
other
one
up, just
o'clock.
cracking up. And it was almost like it was so endearing where I'm like, wow, like they genuinely like each other. Like they like each other. Love is one thing, but you have to like the person you're with. And I don't think a lot of people like who they're with. You love this person, but do you like this person? My parents loved each other and liked each other. And I was very thankful to have seen that. I was also, as an adult, I guess, equally thankful to see how, when things were bad, they were really bad. And I mean, you go from having two people sitting on a couch slapping five and having a good time with each other till attempted murder. I mean, that I walked in on that. I was a child. I was a kid. I was 5 years old and I saw that. And it shattered my view of men and women for a long time. I just understood that there were levels and dualities to human nature, because when my parents were great, it was great and it was true. It was genuinely great. It was authentic. And when it wasn't, it was genuinely bad. Also authentic. And I mean, they say all kinds of stories of how love brings out the best of you and the worst of you. And I'm like, like if you're not careful, that could be an excuse to stay in something that you shouldn't stay in. And that's how I felt. I mean, I was 5 years old when I walked in on them, on my father trying to kill my mom. And And then my mom stayed for another 7 years. They stayed together another 7 years after that. And I know that because I was counting. Because like when you're a kid, it's like, this is wrong. Just shouldn't be happening. Whether or not you understand the actual like dynamics of who's involved and how deep it goes, you might not know those details up front, but you understand that certain things just shouldn't be happening. They feel wrong. They register wrong. The vibration's wrong. It's just wrong. It irks your soul. You genuinely are in pain. I asked my parents to get a divorce when I was 5, and I barely spoke English at 5. I I learned how to speak English with Sesame Street and Lion King. And at 5 years old, I was in K1, K2. Um, it definitely set the tone for the rest of my life in a way that I wasn't prepared. If we go into both of their family dynamics, have siblings that have also manifested their pain in different ways. When I say they both grew up in broken homes, it's my father grew up in a home with domestic violence where physically, like, it was hell, and his parents were together for a long time. Still, like, they never got divorced. They just stayed. And so it has a lot to say about my grandmother as well. I'm like, why would you stay for so long? And you have these doctrines and these things that we're taught, especially coming from religion, where it's like, well, that's your husband and you stay. And it's like, well, no, because this person's trying to kill me, so I shouldn't stay. But the Bible and other religious avenues will tell you that it's wrong to get a divorce. It's a sin to divorce. I'm like, it's a sin to stay. But it's not popular opinion, I guess, at least then. I know I resented my mother for staying another 7 years after I walked in on that scene, and it also made me feel like I didn't count. Like, my feelings didn't count, my emotions didn't count, my opinion of it didn't count. Or I'm like, why would you ask me if we moved from the place where that happened? And before we moved, my mom asked me, should we bring our dad? And I said no. I said no right away. Just, it wasn't, I didn't even think about it. I'm like, no, because it's not that I didn't love my father, is that I just didn't love them together when it was that bad. I loved them when they were together and it was good. But it's like, if I have to take the bad with me so I can have very minimal examples of them doing well, it just slowly, well, quickly became not worth it, because it was almost like you take 2 steps forward and 40 steps back. And so the math just didn't add up after a while. I was probably that was the summer going into 3rd grade, and I remember that because my teacher looped. She did 2nd and 3rd grade, and I was really excited to have 3rd grade with the same teacher who I loved. I loved her. Oh my gosh, she was awesome. Mrs. Holland. She was great. Um, it was it goes without saying that I flourished in school. I loved school. School was the one place I had any sort of attention. I wasn't getting enough attention at home, and it manifested in different ways where I was like the overachiever in school, and like I was Hermione. I was definitely Hermione. So when Harry Potter came out, I resonated with Hermione a lot because she was the bookworm. She was a know-it-all, and it's like you kind of get the backlash for being that kid. And so even at school, at some point, I stopped showing how smart I was and sided with being like the class clown because that was fun. It was easier for me, and I got the feedback that I wanted from my friends, as opposed to being the smarty pants, where it just wasn't cool to be a smarty pants when I was growing up. It wasn't cool. So I I worked very hard to hide that. I didn't stop reading and having a love for reading and having a love for education. I never stopped. It was subversive. I hid it. And so I almost like dumbed myself down so that my friends would stay my friends, right? Um, in that need to be seen, I excelled at a lot of different things. And on top of growing up the way I grew up, I was able to have compassion for a lot of things and see things from a logical standpoint, and also be unbiased in many ways, where I knew and understood that I had a grasp on humanity a little bit better than my family did. And if we side with my father's side, with all their shortcomings and their flaws and visible disarray, they were warm and loving. And it was something that attracted my mom, where she's like, man, I wish I had that at my house, right? So my mom, as a child, would run away from her own family. She spent a lot of time with her grandmother. So I'm sure there are things that she missed out on for good reason, that maybe her sisters went through, that maybe she never went through, for better or for worse. And I always gravitated more towards my father's side than my mother's side. My mother's side is very cold, very condescending, and um, they're just not nice people. They come off nice, they're nice enough, I guess. But at some point, there's always like, they slip in some weird comment, or some inappropriateness, or some like harsh joke, or like a criticism in a sandwich between a compliment. But it was like, it's just like a backwards compliment, like a backhanded compliment. And I noticed that whenever I would excel on that side, or have any sort of glory or victory on that side, they like to like knock you down a peg. And it gets to you after a while. If I'm already getting heat from school, my friends and my schoolmates, where it's not cool to be smart, so I had to hide that. And then I sort of had to hide my talents from my family as well, where I'm like, I don't want to show you guys everything, because you take a dump on everything. They just ruin things. They just like, it's just to see you down a little bit. And I was specifically compared to um, one of my cousins for a long time. And I never understood the comparison, other than the fact that we were very close in age. But I would see the way my cousin was raised, and I would see the way I was raised, and we were raised very different. Although our mothers were sisters. Um, my mom is one of five sisters. One of them died when she was very young, like 6 years old, something like that. And then there were four sisters, and you just the older one um, was this particular cousin's mom, and this older sister was, I guess, the on purpose child. And my mother was the second born, and her father preferred boys. He wanted daughters, but not as many as he got, and he's got a ton of daughters. So that goes to show, like grandfather on that side was like a rolling stone. He's got dozens of children all over the place, all over the place. New Jersey, Philadelphia, New York, Puerto Rico, God knows wherever else. I don't know. Um, and so having another daughter with yet another wife, and it's just he was looking for his boys, which he didn't really get. I mean, he got it with another woman after my grandmother. I think he just got the one boy or something like that. I don't know. It's a mess. It's a mess. So this is like an unhealed man doing unhealed things. And side note, a lot of guys that tend to spread their seed a lot like that, it's not always like this conquistador thing. Like it's like a gay man that's trying to prove his manhood by having as many kids as possible. So I don't know. I don't know what his motives were truly, but maybe he was gay, maybe he wasn't, but it'd be funny if he was. And um I just think that'd be hilarious because if you were to meet this guy, he's like a man's man, like a man's man. Like he's not necessarily like marriage material, although he's been married several times and has women all over the place. So it's like in I guess being a rolling stone, it's like God punished you with daughters where he doesn't have a lot of sons. I think he's like I said, he's got maybe one or two, something like that. I don't know. Um, out of dozens of kids. So I just think that's funny, this the irony of that. But maybe that's why he had so many kids because he was trying to have more sons, and I don't know. It could have been a curse or something. It's you never know. I don't know. But needless to say, well, not needless to say, his first kid with my grandmother, my mom's mom, was a girl. And it's okay. He's cool with the first one being a girl because it's like it's 50-50. You don't know what you're going to get. So, okay, boom, you got the girl. And then they try for more kids. I'm pretty sure searching for the boy, and he got four more girls. Um, wasn't a good dude, wasn't a good example for as a man in their lives. And I can say that the women on my mom's side grew up deeply, deeply, deeply insecure, deeply insecure. I can't say it was all his fault because my grandmother was also deeply insecure, and they grew up watching my grandfather sort of walk all over her, just in and out whenever he felt like it, comes and does whatever he wants, has women on the side, and she knew it was just disrespectful, just different levels, like just scumbaggery stuff. Um, as far as I know, there wasn't any physical violence the way there was on my father's side, but it was enough psychological and emotional violence and damage and trauma that it affected everybody, all the women. Um, so going back to my mom and her sisters, her oldest sister was coveted, I guess, the favorite, and my mother always felt like number two. My mother's also of a much darker complexion than I am. My mom's like a chocolate color, and I'm sort of yellow. And my aunt is sort of yellow, and she is probably the lighter one. My mom's the darkest one, and they have two sisters that are somewhere closer to the lighter side, and one sister is sort of like a cinnamony color. I don't know. But my mom for sure received more backlash because she was darker, and that's another topic for another day. Where how we have families that have favorites, and there's colorism and there's racism for sure within our own families, especially for Afro Latino families where we tend to whiten up the race as opposed to um, just marrying who you want to marry and having kids with whoever you want to have kids with. And they just prefer light skin. It's been handed down to us from our colonizers. So um, it's always been something where uh, you know when they say Black Lives Matter and whatnot, aside from everything that it's attached to, it's really black skin, black lives, darker skin. That's what that is, because it's not so much immigrant status, because you can assimilate. Um, some of us have blonde hair, blue eyes, straight hair, and we can just, if you shut up, they'll think you're a white guy or a white girl. But if you show up with your brother and your brother doesn't show up the way you show up, in terms of maybe he's darker, dark hair, dark eyes, a wider nose, bigger lips and whatnot, just more visibly black features, African features, your brother would most likely experience an entirely different lifestyle within the same family, different treatment within the same family, and your siblings, same parents, everything. So anyway, um, my mother's oldest sister grew up with a deep sense of entitlement. And when you grow up like that and you get older, and you sort of lose that because you get older. And so when you know you're about to lose it, you sort of find some sort of someone to either help you continue that, or you grow up. And growing up is a lot harder than finding some sucker to continue to baby you. Um, that being said, with this sense of deep insecurities that my mother and her sisters and their mother have I say have to this day because it's still here. You operate in certain ways. It's you put yourself in positions where you might have very low standards for what love looks like for you, because you haven't been able to find love for yourself. And so anybody that gives you a morsel of what you might feel or perceive as love fills your cup. But if it fills your cup because you're drinking from a glass shard, not a real cup. And I have compassion for them, and I've forgiven these women, and they have gone out of their way to try to turn my light off, because I've been able to find a power, my inner power, and I've always been able to outshine even in the darkest places. I'm funny, right? Or self proclaimed as funny, and that could be a very healing energy. But misery needs company, and I made room for these people for a long time because I innately picked up on their sadness. But in their sadness, it's almost like they felt like they couldn't walk into their power because it would leave the other people behind. So it's almost like crabs in a barrel sort of thing. And they just want you to play ball. They want you to be another crab in this barrel. And if you refuse to do that, well, then the rules are very different for you. And you end up being the butt of the joke. And I know that very well because they would compare me to my father. They would call me my father's name. Oh, that's so and so. And I'm like, damn, like as if I don't hear these things. And it's almost like I said, like jokingly, like, like to compare me to my father's side for whatever reason. And I mean, I had a party stage. I definitely had a party stage, and I would drink you under the table, and I was all that. I did it, and I had a great time. And if I could go back and do it again, I probably would. I probably would, because I learned a lot about myself. I learned, one, that I was easily distracted by money. Growing up poor, you come into a little bit of money, you can kind of like lose it a little bit. So this was in my early 20s, where I had 50, 60, $70,000 in my pocket at any given time. And I didn't travel the world because I was afraid of flying, which is an inherited fear that I got from my mom. She was afraid of flying. So go figure. Um, but I was cool, right? I was cool. I was popular. I had a BMW, and I was 23 and no kids, had a dope job, and I was really good with everybody at work. I was cool with people at work. I had two jobs, and one of them would was like to save, and the other one was like to go play. And I was doing well on the outside anyway. But I was also running from my childhood. I was running from my own trauma, and I knew that. But I felt like I have a it was almost like you like make a bargain with yourself. It's just like, okay, I'll just do this for a little bit, and then I'll get on my shit. But it's like the second I started, it's like I couldn't get off the wheel, and I had to get rocked before I got off the wheel, which I'm thankful for as well, because I don't think I would have opened up my eyes the way I should have had it not happened the way it happened. I had people around me that I had attracted because of that sense of that need to be loved, to be seen, right? So I had attracted people around me that had no intention of taking care of me, and every intention of using me. And I was used by people around me, people that I thought I could trust, and people that it's just, well, that's the thing, right? It's like trauma is almost like beer goggles, right? You don't know you are wearing beer goggles till you get off the sauce, and you realize, oh my God, look at what I've been doing. Like, look at how I've been living my life this whole time, and I didn't truly just didn't know any better. So um, it's hard. It's hard, and I would notice that, in that stage in particular, my aunts would not be very happy about it. And I had waited. I mean, I never gave my mom any crap when I was a kid, teenager, high school. I never really gave her like stuff that she needed to worry about, nothing like that. I wanted to go out when I was 21, and my mom didn't like that. My mom punched me in the face once because I told her that I hated her. I'm like, I hate you. Like, I just like, I felt like I had sacrificed so much. Like, you stayed with my dad an extra 7 years and got your ass kicked for an extra 7 years, and you never stood up for yourself in that aspect. And my dad is sick, and you're sick too. And I have been holding on to this for so long, and just making sure that I held down the fort. I have a younger brother. It's just a year younger, not that much younger. But when my parents would have these fights, I would jump in to these fights. Like I'm jumping in. I was in there with them, you know, and it was like I just felt like I was doing so much work that I shouldn't have been doing. That by the time I turned 21, I was like, I clocked in my shift. It's my turn. I'm gonna have some fun now. Excuse me, and I felt like I was very cordial with her. In hindsight, there's definitely times where I was probably pretty disrespectful, but it it comes from a place where I'm like, I'm fed up. I put my time in. I put my time in. And it's like it's my turn. And I waited till I was 21. I'm not out here like sneaking out in the middle of the night like all my friends were doing. All my friends were partying, 15, 16 years old, going into clubs, fake IDs, all that. I never did none of that. I never did any of that. And even when I was partying, I didn't enjoy clubs. I didn't like clubs. I thought clubs were super dangerous. I'm like, why would you go party with a bunch of clowns in a box with like two exits, maybe? And sometimes some of these clubs, clowns and clubs, right? They'd be in basements, and it was just super unsafe. So as crazy as I ever got, I was always the mom of every group where it's just like, okay, let's go home. Okay, I'll take you home. And I took care of people. And it's because I grew up in a household where my parents couldn't take care of themselves. My mom couldn't take care of herself. So I was the caretaker in my home, which is so unfair for a kid. That's not fair. But I felt like that's how I was most useful in my home. I wanted to make myself useful because nobody was nurturing any of my other talents except for my teachers, which is why I love school so much. People think that, like I rarely miss school, rarely. I loved school all the way through high school. I loved school. I love the structure. I love being able to go in there and see how much I can achieve and then go for it and then get the goal. And I enjoyed that because in my household, didn't matter how hard I tried, I couldn't fix anything. There was like no way to fix anything. And so yeah, school really worked for me. And I think I probably would have done well in the military as well, just to have more structure and have something where your efforts are immediately rewarded. And coming from a dynamic where all my efforts there were thwarted as much as possible, because it's almost like I would raise the bar. And if I was kicking ass left and right, not only did I have like a deliberate early 20 something stage of partying that was no kids, no kids. I was i was you just couldn't tell me anything. You couldn't tell me anything at that age, because at that point I was like, no lady, like no, I'm gonna have this moment. And I got really caught up in that, really caught up. And I met other sad people. I was a sad person chasing things, running away from things. And I met other people that were just as sad, if not worse, because they had embraced their dark side as opposed to trying to keep it in check. I had spent a long time trying to keep my darkness in check because I understood that I didn't want to spread it. And my parents had spread it because they couldn't keep their dark side in check. And so there's healing and then there's keeping it in check, which could be two different things, right? I mean, people take kindness for weakness, and they really shouldn't do that, because it's always that mousy little kid that ends up coming to school with you know vengeance on his mind, and like wanting to shoot up the place, and then people blame the kid. I'm like, "Ah, he's probably been bullied for the last 8 years of his life and he got fed up." Do you understand? Like I understand the pain that bullies go through, because it's like I come from a family of bullies. I come from a family of people that want to keep you down just so they can feel big. And the second you step out of line, they're like, get back in line. You better get back in line. Meanwhile, the line is like headed straight off of a cliff. And you can see it. Some of them can see it. Some of them don't, because they're just walking backwards, making sure you're in check, right? And then you wonder why little by little all these people just fall off. And when I say fall off, it's like you can have a house, brand new house, husband, kids, everything like that, and your mental health is completely non-existent. It just looks good on the outside. But that house right there, that house is a madhouse. That house right there, that house is a hellhole. You understand? I When I was younger, my aunt would have this best friend that was clinically diagnosed as like psychotic or whatever. She was like crazy, right? For the lack of a better word. I don't like to use that word lightly like that, but this woman was clinically diagnosed as, there's some issues there. She had a brother, short dude, short golden dude, and he was deeply, deeply, deeply disturbed as well. Very, very inappropriate. I remember one of the family parties that we had at their house. They would come over all the time. Mind you, it's like a best friend of my aunt at the time, and the brother would come as well. And the brother came upstairs to the room where all the kids were playing. We were playing video games or watching something or something like that. I don't know. But he lays down on the bed with the little kids. Like I was probably 10, right? And he asks us if we wanted to see his penis. He goes, "Do you want to see my dick? Do you want to see my penis?" And I'm like, "Are you freaking kidding me? What?" Right? And he's just laying there with this creepy, creepy, creepy look on his face where I'm like, "Oh my God." And I grab my brother and I get out of there. But that room was my little cousin's room. I can't tell you how many family parties this man was at. I can't tell you how many times he goes upstairs to the bathroom and makes a pit stop at the kids' room while all the other adults are downstairs. Nobody knew about that. And I can't imagine how many times maybe it went a lot further than that. I don't know. My little cousin was an only child for a long time. And I know for a fact that her mother wasn't the type to be nurturing and understanding and none of that. Her mother grew up very entitled and she was pissed that she sort of lost that. Never wanted to have kids in the first place. My mom told me once that one of her biggest dreams was to be an escort. I'm like, makes sense. Makes sense. But it's also like, what series of events allows you to get to a place where that's your biggest goal in life? That's your dream, to be an escort? And I mean, I try not to judge, but when you know the timeline, you can sort of kind of see where things went wrong. And you see how four different kids react to the same event in four different ways. This was a person that lives and still lives through her pride and her ego. A person that is afraid of aging because she'll lose her beauty. Just incredibly shallow person, and also in such deep pain that that's all she knows. All she knows is pain. And I can't imagine what she did to my cousin. And when I say what she did to my cousin, it's what she had allowed to happen to my cousin because she had an inability to step up, which is probably stemming from a place of seeing her mom having an inability to step up. And so kids respond to trauma in very different ways, where some kids implode and some kids explode. Implosion is like you just eat it, you don't talk about it, and that's it. And you just pretend like you can go live your life normally. And you wonder why the things that happen to you. And then you have other people that when they explode, it's alcoholism, drug abuse, substance abuse, outward mental health unraveling. When you see that, and this is all a response to the same thing. And society likes to make it seem like, well, if the picture looks good, it must be good. And that's so not true. It's so not true. You have some of the richest homes in America with kids that are complete drug addicts in homes that have everything for them. These kids grow up with, no purpose and no need to work because they've had access to everything for so long. They're just these bored beings. And, the devil loves an idle mind. I've been able to observe my family for a long time. I didn't grow up watching my father's side so much because most of them lived in Puerto Rico. Um, so I grew up with my mother's side more often than not. I guess 90% of my childhood was spent with my mom's side. And I was the oldest. I am the oldest on both sides. First girl, both sides. So I had a lot of pressure on me to have answers that they didn't have. I had a lot of pressure on me to figure things out that they hadn't figured out. But it was just like inherited pressure. They would pressure me to, you know, take care of my sibling and cousins and whatnot. And when you're the oldest, you just like automatically get all the blame. And I had people, I had my aunt tell me once, she's the oldest as well. She looked me in the eye once and she told me that I was just like her. And I was like, look, lady, I'm nothing like you. Like you, this is like, she was genuinely a sick person. This is also the same lady that told me I was gonna be a loser like my father when I was 13. Told me to my face, like in my face, and it was deliberate. It was like mean on purpose. She's like mean on purpose. And she does it to hurt you, to see you squirm, to see you like she loves spreading pain. Some people spread pain because that's all they know. And that was most of my family's dynamic in different measures, different levels, different intensities. But yeah, yeah, there's some angels in there. There's a couple. It's like two and a half people that are really trying to stick to their guns and be good. And I'm sure they have their flaws and their ugly side as well. I'm sure they do. We all do. And it's a battle from within. You get the devil and the angel, and you have to have that fight every single day. And it's a choice. You make 14 million choices every single day, and some of them are conducive to your growth, and some of them will not, and will never be. And I chose the light. And I think somewhere along the lines, my cousin raised by my older aunt, my oldest aunt, I'm sure at some point she chose the darkness. And I mean, it's easy to be to just give up. That's easier. You get fed up. I get it. You get fed up. You get tired. You try a couple times and it doesn't work, and you get smacked down enough by people that want to see you fucking like die. Like they want to kill you. It's like you could die a million ways. There's a million ways to die. Some of them are very, very slow, but all of them lead to death. And it's almost like, you have people that eat people. They eat your soul, and they get you nice and young so that by the time you have any sort of autonomy over yourself, you don't even know who you are. You have no idea who you are. So if you've never learned to hold on to yourself, to have people say horrible, nasty things to you, and then still hold on to yourself, still hold on to that little kid, because somewhere along the lines, it's just like you're the only one that can save that kid. And the way to save that kid is to stay as closely. It's hard. A lot of people might see that little kid was just like, well, this is the same little kid that used to get their ass kicked. So I just, I might as well get rid of them as soon as possible. They're useless to me. You have parents that eat you, and you have one parent that just like allows things to happen, and sort of like allows you to go through these things by yourself. It does something to you. For sure, it does something to you. It's you learn to just not trust. And I learned very quickly that I couldn't trust my mother's side. That these people would much rather see me fail than to see me succeed. Doesn't matter what they say to you. You succeeding means they gotta try harder. And it's hard to be good. It's hard to stay good. It's hard to stay healthy. It's hard to put people in their place when they're wrong. And I don't know who's gonna see this. I don't know if anybody's gonna see this, but you cannot give up. You can't, because then you're gonna turn into them. And you know what it feels like to be in that person's presence. And when I say person, it's like it's a disposition. It's a state. I just learned that I really didn't want to be like them. That being said, you're around it enough, you don't come out unscathed. There are definitely mistakes that I've made that I can't take back, and I've also been framed for things that I haven't done. So then there's that as well. And going back to the pressure that you have from being a firstborn, it's like I took responsibility for things I didn't even do just to keep the peace, just to make it stop, to make it go away. And that same, I have people that took took that as like an opportunity to dump everything on me. Whatever they were going through, whatever they were doing, the things that they knew they were doing that were wrong, they would just blame it on me. It was just easier that way instead of facing their own shortcomings. Misery needs company, crabs in a barrel. And that'll do something to you if you're not careful. I have little cousins right now that are suffering with their own mental health by themselves, and I can't help them because they're surrounded by so many people that want them to not succeed as well. And I just so happen to be probably the only lifesaver in my family right now because I quite literally overcame this. I got off the roller coaster. I stopped. Sorry. I got off the roller coaster. I stopped playing the game, and it's been rough. It's been rough. I've had people really turn on me, but these were the same people that were plotting on my death. I was suicidal for a long time because you just look around and everybody's sad. Everybody's just miserable, and you want to go, and there's nowhere to go, and so you just rather just kill yourself. So I get it. I know what it's like to be in such a dark place where you're like, just leave the lights off. Don't turn them back on ever. I don't want them on ever again. I know what that's like. But I also know that there's a way out, which is nuts because I didn't think there was. And it's that they say all mental health comes from spiritual misalignment. And my family is definitely spiritually bankrupt. And so the more spiritual I got, not religious, spiritual. Jesus was spiritual. Jesus wasn't even a Christian. I think religion has caused more damage than what it intended to heal. I guess that's the intention that they tell us that religion was for, but religion is largely a tool of control as opposed to liberation. That's just my opinion, even though you can look it up and find out that it's probably true. But I experienced liberation. I experienced healing. I experienced forgiveness, compassion. These people, like I said, they are dealing with their own pain the only way they know how. And if they grew up around a bunch of people that would spread pain and people that would never acknowledge their pain and their plight, then you just learn to not acknowledge your own pain. And you're not good enough for yourself. So then when you see someone walking into their power and having the audacity to be themselves and show themselves, it's incredibly threatening if you're insecure and you haven't been able to do that. And we live in a society where we breed insecurity all day long. We have a bunch of sensitive people. We can't say anything anymore. You can't make jokes anymore. You can't do anything because everyone's still like hurting from something that has nothing to do with you. You're poking out a wound that they haven't healed. I mean, it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility. I read somewhere that you pick this life, that you see all the shortcomings, all the pitfalls, all the madness, all the chaos, all the evil, that you see everything that comes your way. You see all the different variations of what your life can look like based off of the decisions that you make and all the crossroads that you meet and find yourself at multiple times throughout life, and that you get to see all the versions and you pick and you willingly pick because one of those versions you end up killing it. Like you truly become your best self, your highest self, the most beautiful person you've ever met is you. And a lot of us are taught to get away from that as soon as possible. It's whimsical, you're making it up, grow up, get your head out of the clouds, don't be a dreamer, all those things to get you to walk away from your intuition, from your feminine energy as soon as possible. And we each embody feminine energy and masculine energy. Masculine energy is move, action, control, now, do it. Feminine energy is rest, rejuvenation, nurture, create, ideas, intuition, art, painting, dancing, swimming, love. It's like anyone can build a house, but is it a home? You need both, right? And if you think home is outside of yourself, then you'll just keep searching for that. And I can't imagine how empty that must feel after a while when you keep looking and you get all the things you want and it's still not enough. You're still not fulfilled. You have billionaires that jump off of buildings, artists, musical artists, celebrities, famous people, people that have money and success and like unbridled success and still kill themselves. You can't buy your way into happiness. You can't. Not when you have a hunger for something deeper. If you've been able to shun your feminine energy enough that you truly function without it, it's like, there could possibly be another level to life that you never experience. And maybe for others, it's much more prominent to move forward in that direction than it is for others. But I know I've had money and I've been sad, and I've been broke and I've been sad. But I've never had money and been happy. And I've been broke and happy. And the reasons why I had money and wasn't happy was because I went for money for the wrong reasons. Money is a tool. It's a very important tool. Not saying don't get money. I'm trying to be rich. I'm trying to be filthy rich. And I don't even mean to say filthy. That's just another term or phrase that you hear growing up. But I want to be super rich, but only so I can spread more love. You need money to save the trees. You need money to save the forest. You need money to do all those things. You need money to have better mental health care facilities. You need money to have these nonprofits that actually do something, that aren't tied to the government and this autonomous space and place where you can have organizations that are actually here to do something. Hollywood is another example of what it looks like when you eat people for their talent. You need them to produce like a cow, and people are have been reduced to what you bring to the table. And the second you decide to take that power back, I mean, the tables turn very quickly. And that's what's happened to me. Well, that's what they tried to do. It didn't work. It didn't work mostly because I had been watching them for a long time. And I'm referring to my family. My family is like my family's like R. Kelly. My family's like Lee Harvey, Weinstein, or that dude or whatever. That's what this is like. My family's like the government. My family's like the media. I don't like what you're saying, so let me let me distort what you're saying, and let me make it so that people question your mental health, and so that even if you kick and scream and tell the truth straight up, no one's gonna believe you. They do that to you. They turn you into this thing. I have another aunt that my family calls like the crazy one. She happens to be my favorite, by the way. And she happens to be my favorite because I think she's authentic. I think she's a great person. I think she has been forsaken by her family, and it has manifested in a way that's more outwardly, like, you can single it out more. The way they single out my father's side, the way they compare me to my father's side, because it's outward, right? Whereas the people pointing the fingers should be pointing it at themselves. And that's what I've been doing. I've been pointing the finger back at them. Because even though they point the finger at that aunt learned to point the finger back, and not in a way where she's healing, not in a way where she's seeking truth. It's like, uh, can't beat them, join them, sort of thing. And I have several of my younger cousins that are in that space too. Can't beat them, join them. So a lot of what I'm going through is not just for me, but it's for them to see that they can get out of it. You can get out of this. You can. And it all goes back to that kid. Wherever you left that 5-year-old that you feel like was no longer going to serve you, that's the same kid that has all the answers you need. A lot of you became lawyers and you wanted to be artists, but your parents would prefer you to be a lawyer. And the money's great, but you're not really happy. And so it's not really worth it. Save some money, stay for another year, and then fuck off. Go be Picasso. Maybe it'll work. And they say find your passion, find something you love. Like, you have to do that. So most of us probably not in college either. We have these platforms now, especially with social media, especially YouTube. You have these platforms where you can absolutely put yourself all the way out there and potentially find, people that genuinely love you for you, which could be something that you've never experienced before. But you got to make the first step. You got to take the first leap. And that's what I'm doing here. This video is an hour and almost 10 minutes long. I didn't mean for it to be this long, but somebody needs to hear this. I know even with what I've skimmed with my family, it's like I understand their pain and I understand what they're going through. I understand they're being threatened by me, but it's time. It's just time. I'm not bringing in my babies to deal with this. My babies are not going to be in this world with these people. They just won't be. They just won't be. And I'm in my early 30s now, and my friend was looking at me like, TikTok, where are those babies? I'm like, even if I had them, you're not going to see them. You just, I don't think that's going to happen. So you can wait all you want. We're not gonna do Christmas. We're not doing holidays. We're not. Oh, but it's family. No, bro. You're just a bunch of humans, a bunch of other people having their own human experience. They're a bunch of souls having their own human experience. In the Bible, God says, "I kill and I make alive. I wound and I heal." And so, every projection, every slice of human being that has ever walked the earth is a slice of God, Hitler included. And if that's true, then we can also be Gandhi. They say God is omnipresent. He's everywhere. In a baby's laugh, a little puppy kisses you, the rainbow after the rain, beautiful waterfall, a sunset, making love, kisses, playing with your kids, beautiful smiles, laughing with your buddies. And even when you're down and out, still there. It's true when they say God helps those who help themselves. I've been through an incredible journey and I had no intentions other than to just feel better. And I messed around and ended up finding myself. And I fell in love. I fell deeply, madly in love with myself. Not in a narcissistic way, not in a selfish
It's 2 o'clock.
way, but in a way where I'm like, I've never cared about what I thought all these years. I just didn't think that what I thought held any weight. And now being in my 30s, I bump into old friends from high school, middle school, college, and I bump into these people, and it's like you can tell that they've been through a little bit of pain. I've been through a little bit of pain. I've definitely hurt people in my past. I have struck out, super, super struck out. But it's a lesson. It's like, okay, cool. That's something I need to work on. I need to work on that. As opposed to what my family does, where it's like, well, you made me do it. That doesn't solve anything. Well, I'm your mother, or I'm your grandfather. I'm your grandmother. I'm your aunt. I'm your dad. So it just doesn't give you the right to spread pain. And if you're not careful, you'll have an entire family that does that. Until you get that one kid that's fed up. And hopefully that kid doesn't kill themselves. Because that kid might be the only way out. And it's started to catch on, actually. My mom won't necessarily outwardly admit it, but she started her healing journey because she knew I was going to leave her. She knew that in my healing that she's like, I'm done with all of you, including you. And so it sort of kicked her ass, and she's been in gear ever since. She won't go to therapy though. That's like, to me, that's like when she starts going to therapy, it's like, okay, you're for real. I think she's like 60% there. 60. I'd give myself maybe 80%. It's not A, but I'm still working on it. I'm sure that in a year, I still probably feel like it's still 80. The more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. Not only about myself, but about my family and about love and all the things that it can bring you. I keep choosing love. I choose love. I choose love and light. I choose love and light. I choose love and light. Not because darkness isn't right here. Not because I don't have the choice to be dark, to go into that darkness. There's comfort in darkness. There's a lot of people there. But the kingdom is within. So why you running? Quit your running. I had to stop running. And the day I stopped running and let it all hit, let it all fall and wash over me, I was at the brink of genuinely losing myself. It was like psychosis. But if you look up psychosis and some of its original meanings, and the things that they used to call psychosis, before modern day psychology, I guess, it was a spiritual awakening. Go figure. And a lot of people go through a spiritual awakening. Anybody, it's not a lot of people. Everybody that goes through a spiritual awakening, a healing, it's not fun. This isn't fun. This is you facing all your demons that have been waiting for you to fall so they can devour you. And then here you are given the curveball where you turn around, you're like, what? What's up? And you just face it head on. And you get all your teeth knocked out, your knees get broken backwards, pull your arms off, smash your face in, and then you still wake up, right? And you get up and you deal with it and you face it head on. Oh, damn, that's why I do that. Oh, that's why I think like that. Oh, damn, that's where that comes from. And you start to learn. You learn about yourself. It's a beautiful moment, but it sucks. It's like puberty, all in like now. It's the reason why puberty comes in sort of slow, like trickles in. If you go from being a third grader to a sophomore in high school, it's like it's very traumatic. Puberty is traumatic. This is like spiritual puberty. When you go to the gym and you have to work out, you gotta lift heavier things so that your muscles can rip just for them to repair because they're stronger when they repair. It's like kintsurugi, Japanese art of pottery repair. They'll take broken pottery and mend it with gold. And it's almost like you have to fall apart to then come back together, which is exactly what the resurrection was for Jesus in the Bible. He died to then come back whole. So go get that inner kid. They're waiting for you, right where you left them. Go get that kid, I dare you. Go back there. Go save that kid from that drowning well now that you're an adult, now that you can, and fix it. You'll be doing yourself a major service. And you'd be changing the dynamic of your own family for the rest of your life. Because it's not like my parents didn't try. They tried. They just didn't know if it was in here and in here. There's another phrase that goes, you can take the NIGGA out of the hood, but you can't take the hood out of him. It's like that's what that is. You can move anywhere. My parents moved. That's all they did was move. But they moved with shattered dreams from shattered homes and a shattered place with shattered tools and had kids. I'm thankful for my journey, all of it. I'm thankful for the people that have shown themselves and revealed themselves. Anytime my parents fought, my brother would curl up into a little ball. He'd freak out, he'd sort of panic, implode. And that cousin of mine, we were compared so many times where I'm like, if I were her, I'd hate me too. I was such an overachiever. It was really hard to catch up to me. It was really hard. I wasn't easy to compete with. I'm still not. I know I'm incredibly intimidating. Even my face, people think I'm angry because of my eyebrows. I'm like, they just like that. They just, I can't do anything. That's what they are. It's not coming from a place of pride. It's just, these are just the facts. I was able to transmute my pain to bring light, even if it was through comedy. I can do the La Conga, Congos, the Guida, more charismatic, I have a better personality, more open, more social. And when you're an only child, you don't really have any of those skills, especially if you have a mom that's trying to eat your soul. It's like, how are you supposed to be? How are you supposed to end up? How are you supposed to come out? She had a very sweet dad, very nurturing dad. But at some point, her darkness took over enough that she used him. She's been trying to torture her mother for a long time. This girl, now a woman, has walked into all kinds of darkness on purpose, just in search of the same things that I was looking for. It's a different way to go about it. There's consequences for things. And I pray for her. Can't live your life with lies like that and lying on people and ruining people's reputation and going out of your way to destroy other towers just so yours can be the biggest one. The way you do things count. It's not just about putting food on the table for your kids. It's like, do you even know your kid? Do you know that your kid's in pain? And then they wonder. She's one of those. I've been trying to warn people about her for a long time. Maybe in the past when I was younger, it was more so because, this was like a pathological liar for a long time. Still, to this day, still. But then at some point, she walked into this on purpose. I'm like, this is deliberate now. You are malignant on purpose now. You have gone out of your way to spread pain now. And it's just sad. It makes me sad. And I have been the brunt of that pain for a long time. The brunt of those lies, you know, holding my peace for things that I didn't do. I've never had a problem owning up to my own stuff because I come from so many people who just don't. At times, it's taken me a lot longer than I should have, but I always come around. I always come clean because of that, because I refuse to be like them, because I refuse to lie to 5-year-old me. It's not fair to her, and she needs help. And no one was able to help her to see her when she needed to be helped and to be seen. But I'm an adult now, and now I can go do that. And I have been. They can't kill you if you know who you are. It only works when you're weak and you're sad. And anger is a weakness. Sadness is a weakness. You can be vulnerable, not weak. Weak is not standing your ground. Weak is crabs in a barrel. Can't beat them, join them. And like I said, it's hard. You have to have the courage to stand by yourself and be okay with that. Certainly where I'm at. But the tide is turning. The truth always comes to light. I've been able to walk into my truth, flaws and all, and I've been able to show several of my cousins how to do that. Or at least an example of someone who's not afraid to. And they're not stupid. I hope I start an entire family revolution where the older kids or the adults, the older adults, get overturned by the kids. Zeus was a Greek god that would eat his kids because he thought they would turn on him one day, that they would outshine him one day. That's sort of what this is. Some family dynamics are absolutely like that. They'd rather thwart you as soon as possible so that you never get to raise the bar on them. But it didn't work, like I said. It didn't work. I've walked away from my family. Everyone in my mom's side is blocked. Everybody. Even my grandma. They're all blocked. And not because I wanted to, it's because I feel like I've been left no choice. I feel like I can't let them in, you know? I've come too far. I feel too much. I feel way too good. I met this beaming, beautiful being, and it's me. And I'm like, man, where you been? And it turns out I've been here the whole time. I just had to dig a little bit. And you can do it too. It's accessible to everybody. It's available to everybody. Love wins. And I know it's a corny phrase, but it wins. It's real. And it's free. Man, it's free. Bye, guys. I guess I'll cut it there. It didn't work. Where's the mouse here?